I saw her standing in the middle of the road, and I should have known right then that nothing good comes from a woman in a wedding dress at 3 in the morning on a deserted highway. But I didn't know. Not yet. I slammed on the brakes, my pickup truck skidding on the cold asphalt of Highway 12, that lonely stretch between Millbrook and Ashford that cuts through miles of nothing but dead cornfields and forgotten farmland. The headlights caught her full in their beam, white dress, veil flowing in wind that shouldn't have existed on that still October night, bouquet clutched in pale hands. She was beautiful in that photograph kind of way, like something preserved that shouldn't be. I rolled down my window, steam rising from my coffee as the chill air rushed in, bringing with it the smell of earth and something else, something sweet and rotten like flowers left too long in a vase. "Miss, you okay? You need help?" My voice sounded too loud in the silence that pressed against the truck from all sides. She didn't move, didn't even seem to breathe, just stood there in the exact center of the yellow line, her face tilted down so the veil obscured her features. The engine idled rough, that clicking sound it makes echoing off into the darkness. I remember thinking how strange it was that I couldn't see her feet, like the dress was too long or she was floating just slightly above the pavement. "Miss!" I tried again, louder this time, and that's when she raised her head. I wish to God she hadn't. Even through the veil, I could see her eyes, dark hollows where eyes should be, deeper than any shadow had a right to be. My hand found the gear shift, some animal part of my brain screaming at me to move, to drive, to get away. But my muscles wouldn't respond. She took a step toward the truck, then another, her movements too smooth, too gliding, and I heard it then, the rustling of her dress, but underneath it, a wet dragging sound, like something being pulled through mud. The temperature inside the truck dropped so fast my breath came out in white clouds. The radio, which had been playing some late-night talk show, started crackling with static. And through the static I heard it. Music, faint and distorted, wedding music, that traditional march twisted into something discordant and wrong. Finally, my foot found the gas pedal, and I jerked the truck forward, swerving around her, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing there, getting smaller as I accelerated, and then she was gone, just empty road lit by my taillights. I told myself it was shock, exhaustion, that third cup of coffee playing tricks. I'd been driving for 6 hours straight, taking the shortcut to make it to my sister's wedding in Ashford by dawn. Maybe I'd dozed off for a second, had some kind of waking nightmare. That's what I told myself for about 30 seconds until I smelled it. That overwhelming stench of rotting flowers, so strong that it made my eyes water. And perfume, sickly sweet perfume that coated the back of my throat. I looked at the passenger seat instinctively, some part of me already knowing what I'd see. Nothing. The seat was empty, but the smell was getting stronger, and the temperature kept dropping until frost started forming on the inside of the windows in delicate lace-like patterns that looked too much like wedding decorations. The radio static grew louder, that distorted wedding march drowning out everything, and I cranked the volume dial to off, but it kept playing, kept drilling into my skull. Then I saw her in the rearview mirror, not on the road behind me, in the back seat of my truck. She was sitting directly behind me, close enough that I could see the details I'd missed before, details I'm never going to be able to forget. Her dress was torn and stained with something dark that had dried in spreading patterns across the white fabric. Her veil was wet, clinging to what I could now see of her face, blue-tinged skin, lips the color of old bruises. And those eyes, those hollow pits that somehow still managed to stare right through me. Her bouquet was wilted, the roses black and decomposing in her grip. And her hands were covered in dirt like she'd clawed her way out of something. I screamed and jerked the wheel hard, nearly sending the truck into the ditch. She didn't move in the mirror, didn't react to my panic at all. Just sat there with her head tilted at that unnatural angle. I could hear breathing now, ragged and wet, and I realized with absolute horror that it was coming from right behind my ear. Cold air touched the back of my neck, and I felt something brush against my hair, fingers, gentle like a caress, but so cold they burned. "Why did you leave me?" The voice was a whisper, barely audible over the distorted music, but it cut right through me. It sounded like wind through broken glass, like drowning, like every sad thing in the world compressed into 3 words. I didn't answer, couldn't answer, just pressed the accelerator to the floor. The old pickup shuddered and groaned, but the speedometer climbed, 60, 70, 80 miles an hour on that narrow highway, fast enough that the dead cornfields became a blur outside the windows. In the mirror, she was still there, hadn't moved an inch despite the speed, despite the trick bouncing and rattling over every imperfection in the road. "Why did you leave me at the altar?" That voice again, closer now, right against my ear, and I could feel cold breath on my cheek. I didn't, you've got the wrong person," I managed to choke out, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Through the mirror, I saw her lean forward, impossibly forward, her face pushing through the headrest like it wasn't even there, materializing inches from my own. Up close, she was worse, so much worse. Her wedding makeup was smeared and running, mixed with mud and something else. There was a gash across her forehead, partially hidden by the veil, and her neck bent at an angle that no living neck could achieve. Water dripped from her hair, from her dress, pooling on the seat with a steady drip, drip, drip that shouldn't have been possible. "You promised forever." Her mouth didn't move when she spoke, but I heard the words directly inside my head, bypassing my ears entirely. "You promised and you lied and you left me waiting and waiting and waiting until I couldn't wait anymore. I don't know you. I've never seen you before." I was crying now, tears streaming down my face as I pushed the truck past 85, the engine screaming in protest. Up ahead, I could see lights, Ashford, finally, civilization and people and help. Just a few more miles. "Everyone leaves," she said, and her hand reached around from behind, passing through the headrest like smoke, her freezing fingers wrapping around my throat, not squeezing, just resting there. But I felt my windpipe constricting anyway, felt ice spreading through my veins. "Everyone leaves me alone in the dark. Everyone drives past. No one stops. No one helps. No one remembers." The lights of Ashford were getting closer, and I could see the 24-hour gas station at the edge of town, its fluorescent lights like a beacon. My vision was starting to gray at the edges, my lungs burning for air that wouldn't come. The hand on my throat was getting colder, tighter, and through the mirror I saw her other hand reaching for my face. "But you stopped," she whispered, and I swear I heard something like gratitude in that broken voice. "You saw me, you tried to help, so I'll let you live. I'll let you go, but you have to remember me. You have to tell them about me. You have to make them stop."
The moment my truck crossed into Ashford proper, the hand vanished. The cold disappeared so fast it felt like someone had turned on a heater. The smell of flowers and decay evaporated. The radio went silent. I gasped for air, coughing and gagging, and looked in the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty. I pulled into that gas station and stumbled out, my legs barely holding me up. The attendant, a kid who couldn't have been more than 19, took one look at my face and called the police. I told them everything, expecting them to laugh or call me crazy or at least suggest I was drunk. But the older officer, the one with gray in his beard and tired eyes, just nodded slowly. Highway 12, the bride. Yeah, we get reports every few months. Been happening since 2016, ever since that accident. He told me the story then, as I sat shaking in the gas station parking lot with a blanket around my shoulders and terrible coffee warming my hands. Her name was Rebecca Marsh. She'd been driving to her wedding on October 15th, 2016, running late because of some last-minute emergency with the flowers. Hit a patch of black ice on Highway 12, lost control, went off the road into the drainage culvert. They didn't find her for 3 days. Her fiancé had been waiting at the church, going slowly insane as hours turned into days and no one could find her. By the time they located the car, half submerged in water and hidden by the tall grass, she'd been dead for 72 hours, still in her wedding dress, still clutching her bouquet. The officer said dozens of people have seen her since, always in that same stretch of road, always between midnight and dawn. Some see her standing in the middle of the highway, others just catch glimpses in their mirrors. A few, like me, get the full experience, the smell, the cold, the voice asking why they left her. Why does she do it? I asked, my voice still hoarse. Why does she haunt that road? The officer was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the darkness beyond the gas station lights. Best we can figure, she's still trying to get to her wedding. Still trying to find someone who'll help her, who'll take her where she needs to go. She was crying on the side of the road, and I almost didn't stop, almost kept driving because every true crime podcast I've ever listened to has trained me better than that. But something about the way she stood there in that wedding dress, shoulders shaking with silent sobs, made me pull over anyway. I'm an idiot, that's what my therapist says now, in the kindest way possible. Not for stopping to help someone in distress, but for not trusting my instincts when everything started going wrong. This was late September 2016, maybe 2 in the morning, and I was driving back from a conference in Millbrook, taking Highway 12 because the GPS insisted it would save me 40 minutes. 40 minutes. That's what I traded for 6 months of therapy and the inability to look at my own reflection without my heart rate spiking. The headlights of my Camry caught her as I came around the bend, and I actually said, "What the hell?" out loud, because who wears a full wedding gown on a highway at this hour? She was facing away from me, toward the cornfields that stretched endlessly into the darkness, and even from behind I could see she was soaked. The dress clung to her in a way that made me think she'd been caught in rain, except the pavement was bone dry and the sky was clear enough to see stars. I put on my hazards and got out, leaving the engine running, leaving the door open, some part of me already planning an escape route. Smart. Not smart enough. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need me to call someone?" My voice sounded too cheerful, too forced, that customer service tone I use when I'm uncomfortable. She didn't turn around, just kept crying, these soft hiccuping sounds that were barely audible over the crickets and the idle of my engine. I took a few steps closer, gravel crunching under my sneakers, and that's when I smelled it. Wet earth. Standing water. And underneath, something chemical and sharp that reminded me of the funeral home where we'd held my grandmother's viewing. Formaldehyde, I realized later. The smell of preservation and death. "Miss, I can give you a ride if you need one, or I can wait with you if you're expecting someone." I was about 10 feet away now, close enough to see that her veil was torn, hanging in strips down her back, and that her bare feet were filthy with mud that seemed too dark, too thick. She stopped crying. Just stopped mid-sob, and the silence that followed was somehow worse than the sound had been. The crickets had gone quiet too. Everything had. It was like someone had hit mute on the entire world, and in that vacuum of sound I could hear my own heartbeat, fast and getting faster. "I'm lost," she said, and her voice was wrong, too hollow, like it was coming from the bottom of a well. "I can't find the church. I'm going to be late. He's waiting for me, and I'm going to be late." She still hadn't turned around, but I could see her hands now, hanging at her sides, fingers twitching slightly. Her nails were broken and black with dirt, and as I watched, water dripped from her fingertips, pooling on the asphalt despite the dry night. "What church? I can help you find it. Just tell me where." "I'm so late," she interrupted, and there was panic creeping into that hollow voice. "So late! Hours and hours, and I can't get there. The car won't work. The water came in and the car won't work, and I can't get the door open, and I can't breathe, and—" She turned around. I should have run the second she started turning, but my feet were rooted to the spot, my body betraying me completely. Her face was blue. Not pale, not just cold-looking, but actually blue, that distinctive color of oxygen deprivation. Her lips were nearly purple, her eyes bloodshot and bulging slightly, and water ran continuously from her nose and mouth, streaming down the ruined bodice of her dress. Her makeup, probably beautiful once, was smeared into grotesque streaks, and there was something in her hair, tangled in the soggy curls, pondweed, green and slimy. "Can you help me?" she asked, taking a step toward me, and I saw that she left wet footprints, dark puddles that spread across the dry pavement. "Can you take me to the church?" "I need to get to the church. He's waiting. Everyone's waiting. I promised I wouldn't be late, but the car... I was backing up, my hands held out in front of me like that would do anything, like you can ward off the dead with empty hands and good intentions. "Stay there. Just stay right there. I'll call someone. I'll get help. I need to get to the church." Her scream tore through the silence, impossibly loud, and her mouth opened wider than any living mouth could, water pouring out like someone had turned on a faucet inside her throat. I ran, just turned and ran for my car, my legs finally remembering how to work, and I could hear her behind me, that wet dragging sound, the slap of bare feet on pavement, closer than she should be, faster than made sense. I threw myself into the driver's seat and slammed the door, punching the lock button over and over, even though it only needed pressing once. My hand shook so badly I could barely get the car in drive, and when I looked up, she was standing directly in front of the car, arms spread wide, that impossible amount of water still streaming from her mouth. I laid on the horn, a long, desperate blast, and she just stood there, didn't flinch, didn't move. So I did the only thing I could think of. I drove at her. I swear I felt the impact, felt the car hit something solid, but when I looked in the rearview mirror, she was standing in the exact same spot, untouched, watching me speed away with those bulging, bloodshot eyes. I made it maybe 2 miles before I realized the car was freezing. The heater was on full blast, but my breath was coming out in white clouds, and ice was forming on the inside of the windshield in spreading fractals. And the smell, that funeral home smell mixed with stagnant water, was filling the car, getting stronger with every second. The rearview mirror caught my attention, some movement in the periphery, and I made the mistake of looking. She was in the back seat. Just sitting there, primly, hands folded in her lap over that waterlogged bouquet of roses, so decomposed they were barely recognizable. Water pooled beneath her, soaking into my upholstery, and more water ran from her hair, her dress, creating steady rivulets down the back of my seat. Our eyes met in the mirror, and she smiled. It was the worst thing I've ever seen, that smile. Too wide, exposing grayish gums, and it didn't reach her eyes at all. Those stayed flat, dead, fish-like. "Thank you for stopping," she said in that drowning voice. "No one stops anymore. They all drive past. They see me and they don't stop. They leave me there, alone, waiting. Get out of my car." My voice came out as a whisper, barely audible over my own panicked breathing. "Get out, get out, get out. I just need a ride to the church," she continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "Just to the church, then I can rest, then I can stop waiting. He's been waiting so long. I've been trying to get there for so long, but no one will help me." She leaned forward, impossibly forward, her torso bending in ways that defied anatomy, until her dripping face was right beside my ear. I could feel the cold radiating from her, could feel water droplets hitting my shoulder. "Do you know what it's like? To drown? To feel the water filling your lungs? To fight and know you're not going to win? To spend your last moments thinking about everyone waiting for you, everyone you're disappointing?" "I'm sorry," I sobbed, tears streaming down my face as I gripped the steering wheel. "I'm so sorry that happened to you, but I can't. I don't know where the church is. I don't know how to help you." "Mile marker 47. That's where I went off the road. That's where the car is. That's where I am. Still there, still waiting, still trying to get out." Through the windshield, I could see lights ahead. Ashford, finally, and I pushed the accelerator down, the speedometer climbing past 70. Everyone who stops, they all see me. They all try to help, and I try to explain, try to make them understand, but they always run. They always leave, just like he did, just like everyone did. No one looked for me, not hard enough, not soon enough. 3 days I waited in that water, in the dark, and no one came. "They found you eventually," I said, not knowing why I was trying to reason with her, with this thing in my back seat. "Someone found you. Someone brought you home." "Too late." The words were flat, emotionless. "Always too late. Forever too late." The car crossed into Ashford and hit the first streetlight, and suddenly she was gone. The smell vanished. The cold evaporated. The back seat was empty except for a large wet stain that would never completely dry, no matter how many times I had the car detailed. I strove straight to the police station, stumbled in, sobbing incoherently, and that's where I met Officer Hayes, the man who'd heard this story a dozen times before, who'd been investigating Rebecca Marsh's haunting since she'd started appearing to drivers 6 months after her death. He showed me the file, showed me her picture, beautiful, smiling, alive, nothing like the waterlogged corpse I had encountered. Showed me the accident report, the search records, the autopsy that confirmed she'd drowned in the drainage culvert where her car had landed, upside down and half submerged, hidden from the road by tall grass and bad luck. He told me about the fiancé who'd had a breakdown waiting at the church, who'd organized search parties, who'd blamed himself even though there was nothing he could have done.